Hi friends, today I'm going to read to you Anne's Lesson in Energy, Chapter 2. Can Anne run out of energy? Norman, slow down, Anne yelled. I'm running out of energy again and I'm having trouble holding my seat up against the force of gravity. We can rest under the bushes at the edge of the campground, laughed Norman. We wouldn't want the force of gravity to bring your seat crashing to the ground again. How can Anne lose her energy? Asked Gus as he put down his seat and sat under the bush. Where can we get her more energy? She doesn't really run out of energy, answered Martha. Energy is not a thing we can lose or see or hold. Energy is an idea that is connected to all things. The idea of energy helps us describe and understand how things change. Things change when there is a transfer of energy, but the amount of energy never changes. It's just transferred, transformed, and moves from place to place. Then why do I feel so tired? Asked Anne. Why do I feel like I need more energy to keep going? Your legs are simply tired, answered Martha. But we do need energy for life's activities such as marching and carrying our seeds. All living things need food. Energy transferred from the digestion of food makes it possible to do the things we need to do. But what does food have to do with helping me carry the seed on to the nest? Asked Anne. Anne didn't know it, but she had asked Martha's favorite question. Martha sat down, adjusted her glasses, took a deep breath, and began to explain to Anne and the rest of the ants about food and energy. Our bodies cause chemical changes in food we eat that let the energy move to the different parts of our bodies, keeping us warm and allowing us to move and grow. The food we eat undergoes a chemical change or reaction to provide our bodies with the energy needed to perform our daily functions and chores. I'm not sure I understand, complained Anne. It's not difficult to understand, reassured Martha. What you should try to remember is that energy is not a thing but an idea we use to describe how things change and how things around us work. Energy is not something Gus can find for you. There are many different changes happening around us that are evidence that energy transfer has taken place. Even though you cannot see energy, we can see how the transfer of energy can change things. I do not want to break up this lesson on energy, interrupted Norman, but it's getting late and we better keep going. Once again, Anne marched into silence. She tried to make sense of all that Martha had explained to her. She watched the world around her as she moved down the path, and she wondered what Martha meant when she told her to watch the world around her to find evidence of energy transfers. What's an energy transfer and how do I see it happen? Asked Anne, again breaking the silence. Let me try to explain, offered Norman. First, you must understand what transfer means. Do you remember when your crumb was too heavy and you transferred your crumb to me so I could carry your crumb? Then you carried a smaller seed? To transfer something is to move or pass it from one thing or person to another. The number of crumbs being carried by the marchers did not change. There was only a transfer of crumbs and seeds between you and me. We do not really see energy transfer, but we see the evidence that a transfer has taken place because there is a change, continued Martha. Do you see that branch over there moving back and forth in the wind? Yes, of course, answered Anne. There is evidence of the transfer of energy because we see the change in position of the branch, said Martha. The energy of the wind is transferred to the branch and is responsible for its motion. I think I'm starting to understand, exclaimed Anne. It might be even easier to understand if we separate the concept of energy into transformations of energy, suggested Martha. You already know about energy associated with chemical changes in the food we eat. Now, see that campfire over there? Yes, the one with the big black stew pot, answered Anne. Smells delicious, said Norman. Makes me hungry, added Gus. Do you see evidence of the hot air rising from the stew pot? Continued Martha. The hot air is evidence or shows that the stew in the pot is hot, and the change in temperature from the hot stew to the cold air is a result of energy related to heat moving from the warmer objects to the colder objects. The energy associated with or related to heat transferred from the fire to the stew pot and then to the stew. The temperature changing from cold to hot is evidence that energy transfer took place. Where does the hot air above the pot come from? Questioned Anne. The energy associated with the heat is transferred from the campfire flame to the pot, and the energy from the hot pot transfers it to the stew. and the stew gradually gets hot. And then the energy associated with the hot stew transfers to the colder air surrounding the pot. The heat transfers from the hot stew, and the pot is warming the air around it. Get it? Asked Gus. Anne didn't answer for a few moments, and then suddenly she blurted out, "So the energy associated with the heat from the flames of the fire is transferred to the pot. The heat from the pot warmed the stew. Finally, the heat from the stew transferred to the air, and the warmer air is a result of the heat moving from the warm pot and the stew to the surrounding air." "By golly," teased Gus, "I think she's got it." "Now, look carefully at the leaves at the branch just above the pot," instructed Martha. "Do you see anything changing or different?" "I think so," answered Anne. "The leaves are moving or fluttering." "That's right," said Martha, pleased. "The energy associated with the heat is once again transferred from the air currents to the leaves, making them move." "That's cool," exclaimed Anne. "No, that's hot," teased Gus. The harvester ants laughed and continued to march their way through the campground, careful to stay a safe distance from humans and their machines. Anne wanted to learn more. She began to look at things around her differently. What other changes could she see that there were evidence of energy moving from place to place? The ants marched under a picnic table, cutting across an occupied campsite. Anne could hear a strange and pleasing sound. "What is that sound?" she called above the noise. "Shh," warned Gus. "The humans will hear you and come with their boots and swatters and spray cans. They don't like us ants on their campground." "The humans call it a radio," added Norman. "It's that plastic box over there on the ground. You can see and hear the transfer of energy associated with sound by listening to the radio." "There's energy associated with sound?" asked Anne, her eyes wide with surprise. "Sound is caused by vibrations," instructed Martha. "If we march very closely to the music box, you can feel the sound of vibrations in the ground. Now, look at the dirt and the sand around the box. Do you see the tiny movement of dirt and sand particles around the radio?" "Yes," whispered Anne. "I could see tiny movements in the dirt." When a sound occurs, the energy of wave of motion outward from the sound through the air into the form of sound waves, instructed Martha. The tiny movement in the dirt is caused by the transfer of energy created by sound waves. "Do you mean waves like waves in a pond?" asked Anne. "Sound waves and waves in a pond are very similar," replied Martha. "They move outward from the disturbance that caused the wave, like a pebble or a raindrop falling on water. We cannot see sound waves, but the idea of waves on the pond is a good model of what happens when sound occurs." Anne continued to think about sound and vibrations as the ants picked up their seeds and crumbs and quietly marched past the radio, and music grew softer. She imagined the invisible sound waves that traveled in the air, reaching her antenna. She marched along in silence, trying to keep her mind off the fact that her legs continued to grow tired from carrying the seed above her head. It was late, and she was not sure she would be able to complete the march home. "What other kinds of evidence can I look for to see energy transfer?" Anne asked, wanting to keep the lesson going so they might stop and rest while Martha gave another lesson. "Look over there at the camper trailer," said Norman. "The one with the row of colored lights on the roof?" "I see it," answered Anne. "The lights are an example of energy associated with an electrical current. The movement of the electrical current along the string of lights is associated with energy that moves along the current and causes change. You can see the change when the lights are turned on and off." "Let's stop a minute," suggested Martha. "The sun is setting and it's getting dark. Maybe the humans will turn their lights so we can see the change." Anne was happy and took another break from the long walk. The rest of the ants appeared eager to stop and wait for the lights to come on also. They quietly set down their seeds and sweet crumbs. They gathered under the leafy bush to watch the lights of the camper. Anne sat silently, staring at the string of colored lights. She hoped the rest of the ants would not grow restless and leave before the lights turned on. Suddenly, Anne's wish came true. The camper trailer light turned on and gave off a beautiful glow in the colors of red, yellow, green, and blue. "It's like magic," whispered Anne. Anne could hear the reaction of the other ants. There was the chorus of oohs and ahs. Anne could see the change that took place and tried to use what she had learned about energy to make the connection to lights. The energy associated with electricity transformed, or changed, to energy associated with light. She had evidence of the energy transfers and transformations. Energy associated with electricity was Anne's favorite. The ants were content to sit under the bush and stare at the camper lights. They seemed to be hypnotized by the colorful glow of lights and the soft music from the radio. Their peaceful moment did not last long, though. Anne and the marchers soon heard the voice of children and a man approaching. The children were laughing and talking. Anne watched as it came closer, and a woman came out of the camper trailer to greet them. The boy ran to his mother to show his new toy. "Look, Mom," he said. "See what Dad bought at the store? A new fire truck. It moves and has a light and siren." The boy went down and placed the truck on the ground. He began to turn the key inside of the truck, and when the boy could not turn the key anymore, he released the truck. All of a sudden, the quiet campground was filled with blaring sound of siren, red lights flashed, and the toy truck took off in a fast motion. The noisy truck headed straight for the bush where the ants were hiding. "Run!" warned Norman. "That thing is headed our way!" All the ants scattered in the woods to get away from the wild, screeching fire truck, all except for Anne. Anne stood still, staring at the toy fire truck. Her feet felt frozen to the ground. The fire truck was heading straight for her. "Anne, look out!" yelled Gus. The truck was getting closer and closer to Anne. She could see the wheels turning, the high-pitched sound of the siren hurt her ears, and the red lights flashed a warning. "Run, Anne, run!" screamed Martha. Norman could see Anne was too frightened to run. He ran from his hiding place, grabbed one of Anne's legs, and pulled her to safety just as the fire truck crashed into the bush and came to a stop. "Thank you, Norman," Anne said quietly. "Shh," warned Norman. The little boy ran past the bushes to find his fire truck. The boy went down to pick up the truck, and Norman and Anne held very still. Hiding behind a blade of grass, the boy's feet appeared huge to Anne and Norman. They knew that they would be crushed as the boy's foot came down on them. "I found it!" yelled the boy. He turned and ran back to his family, leaving the frightened yet unharmed ants to gather under the bush once again. "That was too close for me," exclaimed Gus. "Anne, what happened? Why did you just stand there?" "I guess I was too frightened," replied Anne. "What made that thing move so fast?" "It moved from the other side of the campsite all the way to our hiding bush," added an excited Gus. "I've never seen or heard a toy like that before." "Did you notice a change in the truck?" asked Martha. "Let's see if you can follow the flow of energy associated with the toy truck from when the boys set the truck on the ground to when it came to a rest in the bushes." Martha reminded the ants that before the boy turned on the key on the side of the truck, it did not move, make a noise, or flash its lights. After the boy turned the key several times, the truck moved, made a noise, and flashed lights. "The truck had potential energy as the boy was winding the key on the truck," offered Norman. "Then he wound the key, the greater the potential energy. When the boy stopped turning the key and let go of the truck, the potential energy transferred into kinetic energy, and the car was set into motion," added Gus. "And there was energy related to the sound and electrical current of the siren and the lights," Anne remarked. "Energy associated with the movement of the objects can cause change, and we had evidence of the energy moving from place to place and transferring from potential energy into kinetic energy and sound to light." "It sure can change things," commented Gus. "That innocent-looking toy changed into a screaming mechanical monster. I thought Anne was done for." "I'm all right now," said Anne quietly. "We had better march straight home," advised Norman. Anne was a little bit worried, too. She felt tired and wondered if she would be able to pick up and carry her seed from her. She noticed that some of the other ants were nibbling on their seeds and crumbs. "Here, Anne, eat this piece of seed," said Martha, as if she knew Anne's thoughts. "Maybe this will help you have enough strength to make it the rest of the way home." "Ready?" announced Anne. The ants picked up their seeds and crumbs and formed a tidy line. Norman carried the large cookie crumb. As soon as the ants were marching in step along the path, and Norman led them away from the human campground toward the ant colony. Anne tried to review in her head all that she could remember about motion and energy. She would see things differently and associate energy with motion, light, sound, heat, and electricity, and be on the lookout for when energy is transferred from place to place. Thank you for listening, friends.